We call this the Great Lockdown. And this is a crisis like no other. The impact that we are calculating makes it the worst recession since the Great Depression. So much worse than the global financial crisis. Have containment measures worked? How well will reopening measures work? How to do it? How to sequence it? Which sectors to open? Which people should be allowed to go back to work? There's tremendous uncertainty around that. And more globally, if you look at emerging markets, developing economies, low-income countries, especially those which have weaker health systems, the impact of this crisis can be severe of a magnitude that we just haven't seen yet. They have to do whatever it takes, which means that they have to ensure that they have the health capacity, the protective equipment that's needed, the testing that's needed to be able to deal with this health crisis. Then they have to provide income support to households and workers who are losing jobs, and also help firms survive this crisis. Now the question is, how do you fund that? Everybody is in this together. This crisis is not going away as long as there are hotspots anywhere in the world. So it's very important to collaborate on making sure that medical supplies are available. Countries don't put export restrictions on each other, on sending supplies out, that they share information, that low-income countries that cannot afford to do debt service payments at this time, that they get the debt service relief that they need, and emerging and developing economies also get concessional financing, get liquidity support. As we've entered this crisis, what that has required is for countries to close their borders, to limit the movement of people across borders. So the nature of this crisis has called for deglobalization. Now, we could see that, organically, you might come out of this crisis with firms deciding to locate more production closer to where they are as opposed to internationally. People might decide that they don't want to travel as much, just for the fear of catching a disease. So some of that might happen. I think what we want to avoid is a situation where countries start putting protectionist measures in place to prevent movement of goods across the world, to limit the movement of people drastically. And this is not a problem that's going to solve itself. It will require concerted action by governments around the world. The first half of this crisis has not delivered in terms of the world being able to cooperate in producing sufficient protective equipment for the medical workers, for ensuring that there's enough testing that's happening. You cannot afford to have this happening when a vaccine is discovered. And so we are absolutely concerned and working on these kinds of issues too. You can think of opportunities, which is how you want to bring about a more green recovery in your countries, how to now ensure that social safety nets are much more broader and wider, because we know that countries that have that dealt with the crisis much better. And lastly, to ensure that the world does not deglobalize, which is a real risk at this point. I think this crisis has absolutely brought to the forefront the issue of making sure that people have health security. This crisis has made very clear that you need to have strong social safety nets so that you can provide the appropriate support to households when they need it. So these have to be top priorities for countries around the world, and this would be a great time to make it happen.